Good afternoon, and thank you to the Honor Guard of the Massachusetts Trial Court. At this time, I would ask those of you that are able to continue to stand, and as we do so, I'm going to ask Justice Wolohojian's godchildren, Annabelle and Thaddeus, to come forward to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Center, 8.
You may be seated. Good afternoon. What a great day today is. We're here to celebrate the appointment of Justice Gabrielle Wolohojian to the Supreme Judicial Court and to witness the administration of the ceremonial oath of office. Before we get underway, I have a few housekeeping issues. Justice Wolohojian has asked me to share with you that the 7-justice courtroom, where the 7 justices who hear arguments at the Supreme Judicial Court, is open, and she's welcoming you to come visit it. And the Oliver Holmes courtroom is likewise open, and that's the courtroom where Chief Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes presided. You should also have received a booklet on your chair about the courthouse. In the baskets on the railings, there are some additional copies in case you didn't receive one. My name is Amy Blake. I am an Associate Justice of the Appeals Court, and I am Justice Wolohojian's first Appeals Court mentee. In other words, I'm the OG. From that perspective, I plan to share a few tips for Justice Wolohojian's new colleagues as we work our way through this afternoon's ceremony. But let me first tell you and introduce to you who will be speaking today. Of course, have the Lieutenant Governor, Kimberly Driscoll, Governor Maura Healey, Attorney Robert Fisk, Attorney Joan Lukie, Attorney Peter McDonald, Chief Justice Mark Green, and the honoree herself, Justice Gabrielle Wolohojian. Now, this is the hardest part of my remarks. If I miss somebody, it's my fault, not Justice Wolohojian's. If I mispronounce your name, it is my fault, not Justice Wolohojian's. So with that, I'd like to recognize some people who have joined us today for this special occasion. First and foremost, her newest colleagues, SJC Chief Justice Kimberly Budd, Justice Gaziano, Justice Kafka, Justice Wentland, and Justice Dewar. I also understand that we have with us today retired SJC Justices Judith Cowan, Robert Cordy, and David Lowy. I'd also like to welcome Trial Court Chief Justice Heidi Brieger, Trial Court Chief Justices Diana Horan, Gordon Piper, Tracy Lee Lyons, and Stacy Forts, Court Administrator Tom Ambrosino, Federal United States District Court Judges Ria Zobel and Leo Sorokin, United States Court of International Trade Judge Gary Katzman, former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of New York, Rick Hartunian. I'm not done. Please also welcome Senator William Brownsberger, Representative Stephen Owens, House Judiciary Chair Michael Day, Cambridge Mayor Denise Simmons, SJ Clerk Maura Doyle, Middlesex County Clerk of Courts Michael Sullivan, Suffolk County Superior Court Clerk for Civil Business John Powers, Cape and Islands District Attorney Robert Galbois, Suffolk County District Attorney Kevin Hayden, Essex County District Attorney Paul Tucker. We're also joined today by the Boston Bar Association President Hannah Kilson, the Mass Bar Association President Damian Turco, the Mass Bar Chief Operating Officer and Chief Legal Counsel Marty Healey, current Chair of the Armenian Bar Association, all the way from California, Lucie Varpatian, the immediate past chair of the Armenian Bar Association, Talene Sahakian, as well as Soren Israelian, both of New York, and the past chair, Massachusetts' own, Sonia Nersessian. I'd also like to welcome the many current and former colleagues of Justice Wolohojian from the Supreme Judicial Court, the Appeals Court, and of course all of our trial court colleagues who are in attendance today. None of today would be possible, however, without the hard work of many people who participated in the screening and selection process that led to Justice Wolohojian's appointment. Today, I believe we have with us two governor's counselors, Marilyn Petito-Devaney and Eileen Duff. We are also joined by Governor's Chief Legal Counsel, Paige Scott-Reed, along with her staff, Jesse Boudou, Adam Hornstein, Dara Kesselheim, and Ella Chin, the Governor's Chief of Staff, Kate Cook, Judicial Nominating Commission Chair, Abim Thomas, Vice Chair, Mark Fleming, and JNC Commissioners, Marty Murphy and Jerry Howland. But I've saved the best for last. I'm pleased to introduce the most special of guests, Florence Wolohojian, Justice Wolohojian's mom. That's going to be hard to follow, but also joining us today are Judge Wolohojian's brother, Stefan, and his sister-in-law, Professor Marina Van Zwielen. Thank you for being here. There are also many, many beloved aunts, uncles, and cousins that have joined us all here today. Welcome to the Wolohojian family. Now, before I introduce our first speaker, I sort of have my first tip to Justice Wolohojian's new judicial colleagues. I know there are a lot of rules at the SJC about when you can eat, when you can drink, and I know that Justice Wolohojian shares a kitchen with Justice Gaziano, and Justice Gaziano, I'm told, is a big coffee drinker. Don't worry, your coffee is safe. However, all of you must be very prepared for your meetings. Justice Wolohojian must have a Diet Coke at all times. And honestly, I was a little worried about getting through today, so just a minute. This should take us through the next hour, Gabrielle. With that, it is my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, someone who has served as an important teacher and mentor to Justice Wolohojian. Joan Lukie is a partner at McDonald Phillips in Boston. For decades, she has been a trailblazing luminary of the Boston Bar. It would be impossible to summarize her accomplishments in one introduction. Here's a few highlights. Joan served as the first woman president of the American College of Trial Lawyers and as president of the Boston Bar. She has repeatedly been recognized by numerous organizations as one of the nation's top litigators and undoubtedly one of the region's best courtroom lawyers. She's tried almost 100 jury trials. 10 of those, I'm told, were with Justice Wolohojian as her sidekick. And Justice Wolohojian said, I could say this, she takes full responsibility for any mixed results, Joan. It's easy to see how Joan was an influential figure during Justice Wolohojian's earliest and most formative years of practice. Please welcome Joan Lukie.
Thank you, Justice Blake. I'm going to go off script. My script's written on my fingers, so you know it's not going to be very long. I'm going to go off script for a moment, though, to say this. I have a great story about one of those cases that Gabrielle tried with Justice Wolohojian, still Gabrielle to me, tried with me many years ago. In fact, my now partner, Marty Murphy, was also involved in that case. It was a libel case against the Boston Globe. And of course, the most important exhibit in the case was the article in which we alleged that the Globe had libeled our client, a physician at the Dana-Farber. That article was Exhibit 1, and we each had copies. Gabrielle had an extremely organized system with color-coded dots on the exhibits, which I never understood. I don't think she gave me a legend for them. But in any event, it appears that I lost several copies over the course of interrogating a lot of witnesses. One day, and we were right next to the jury. One day, I looked for my copies, and I couldn't find a copy of Exhibit 1. So I did what any normal partner would do. I turned to my colleague, who was there allegedly to assist me, and I said, "May I have a copy of Exhibit 1, please?" And she said, in a louder voice than I asked her for it, "No." I mean, I was so startled, and Judge White was like, "What?" I could see the clerk scrambling because he wanted to make sure he could get me the real copy if he had to. And I said, "Why?" And she said, again, in a very clear voice that every juror heard, "You've lost too many of them." Now, in fairness, it was a brilliant strategy because from that moment forward, the jury loved her and kind of liked me. I was bungling incompetent. She was a school teacher, and she came dressed like a school teacher every day, to be honest. So she was a school teacher who was trying to get me in line. So that was my favorite story. I wasn't angry with her. I was actually just so flummoxed. I almost didn't know what to do. And literally, the clerk handed me the real Exhibit 1 and whispered to me, "Please give it right back." In any event, many, many, many years ago, the iconic Judge Rhea Zobel, who was with us, pulled me aside after hearing and said, "Would you do me a favor?" And I would have done anything then as I would now for Judge Zobel. She said, "One of my favorite clerks is about to start at Hale and Dorr." And I was a partner there, a young partner, not all that young, but sort of. And I said, "Of course." So I arranged for her to be in the office next to me. We were sharing an assistant, and that's how it came to pass that we became very close. And she tried every case that I tried while we were both there overlapping. We were doing it as a team. Now, as some of you heard me say at the Governor's Council meeting, the favor was the other way around. Judge Zobel, you did me a wonderful favor because Justice Wolohojian is an extraordinary person. And I say that looking at colleagues in front of me, several of whom I'm very close to, mentee in one instance, at another firm, and partner at that same firm, people who mean a lot to me, people I occasionally have the pleasure of having dinner with at a dinner club, and people I care about a lot. So she's joining a wonderful group, and I know that you will find her to be a wonderful addition. I thought about what I wanted to tell you today, and I decided I would talk about an experience that I think all of you have likely had, which is you think you know somebody well, and then as years go by, you realize they have characteristics you hadn't even really discovered yet. So these happened in intervals with Gabrielle. The first one I want to talk about occurred when we were defending a large corporation in a gender bias case where the allegation was that a male was given the job over a more qualified female. We were worried about the fact we had to put the gentleman on as a witness, and it turns out we were more than justified in our worrying. On cross-examination, he was asked one question. I won't even say what it was. I cannot believe what he answered to this day. And all of you who are trial lawyers know that one of the greatest skills is a little mask falls over your face when something horrible has just happened. I wasn't sure it fell fast enough over my face, and I glanced with my eyes, not my head, towards Gabrielle, and she was sitting there with a Mona Lisa-type smile on her face, looking around. Now, I knew her well enough to know that she was focusing on every detail in that courtroom, so her mask was a brilliant mask, and she took away, I think, some of the sting, and I took peace from her, even though I had been in practice a long, long time, and she was relatively new to it. And that characteristic she displayed was grace under fire, a characteristic that she has carried forward in some situations. I'm sorry that she had to carry forward with, but she is a person who shows grace under fire at all times, which I equate in this setting to a perfect judicial temperament. The next one occurred, I have to check my finger. Okay, my finger says that the next one, which was about 4 years after that, was an example of empathy. And empathy to me is more than just being compassionate. It's being compassionate with the ability to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Those of you who were at the Governor's Council's hearing know that I alluded to this. We were defending a drug company in a situation where a terrible harm had been done to a young boy. Very small risk factor had taken effect in his case, and it was just tragic. So of course we were trying to settle it. We mediated it for several days, and when the settlement was reached and all the signatures were on the document, she surprised me actually, I didn't know she was going to do this. She asked defense counsel if she could go and speak to his client for a moment. He looked a little reluctant, but he said yes, and she went over to the mother of this young boy, and she said, "Mrs. Smith, I just want to tell you something." Now, I think there were tears going down Gabrielle's cheeks, but I can't be sure because there were tears going down mine, and the eyes may have been a little misty. She said, "I am so sorry. Joan is so sorry, and our client is so sorry for what happened to your little boy." And this grieving mother stood up and threw her arms around Gabrielle and cried on her shoulder as Gabrielle did on the mother's. It was the most empathetic moment I had ever experienced. She taught me much in that moment, and I was ashamed of myself that I had never had the level of empathy or grace to do what she did. But there have been occasions when I have done it since, and I credit that all to her. I was supposed to be her teacher, but in many ways she was mine. And finally, the characteristic that I knew in a nascent stage, but didn't really come to realize until she had become a justice of the appeals court. She was always extraordinarily smart. That's the reason that the pairing stuck, because I needed her. Very, very smart, very, very knowledgeable. But by that stage in her career, she was demonstrating true wisdom. No one is born with wisdom. No one develops it overnight. Some of us never actually get to a stage where somebody would think that we are wise. Many of us are smart. Many of us are knowledgeable. But wisdom is the ability to pull it all together and feel what it means to the world, whatever that problem is, and to the people with whom you are dealing. And it really hit home for me when she was a justice at the appeals court. I was looking for a case on a certain subject because the associates couldn't find one, and that's because there wasn't one. But I was looking for it, and I came across a case of hers that was not on all fours with what I needed, in fact, but when I started reading, I couldn't stop. And when I finished, I sat back and I said, "Oh my God, she has become, at still a young age, or at least I like to think so, so I thought there was still some hope for me. She had become so wise. She is a very wise as well as smart and knowledgeable person." So why do I tell you about these characteristics? Because if you step back and think about it, what are the better characteristics for a judge or justice than grace under fire, empathy, and wisdom? And these are the characteristics that she has, as do her colleagues with whom she will soon be sitting, or is already sitting actually, and her colleagues with whom she has sat on the appeals court. These are qualities that I know I can say not all of us will have. I don't expect to have all of them. I'll be lucky if I end up with one or two at some point. But I admire her more than she has ever realized for these qualities and all the others that she has. So I will close by saying this. Those of you sitting in front of me who are about to be or are her colleagues now, you're really lucky. She will fit in well with you, and she will be such a wonderful addition because, among other things, she's a great colleague and a great team player. She'll carry more than her share of the weight. I know that from experience, lots of it. So you are fortunate to have her with you. And to her colleagues whom she has been sitting, I know you already know all of those things. So I will close by saying this. We, the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, are so fortunate. We're actually blessed to have her joining this court, this wonderful court. I congratulate the governor for this nomination. I congratulate the Governor's Council for approving the nomination almost unanimously. I congratulate all of us that we are in this lucky position. And most of all, I say to our newest justice, congratulations. It just should have happened sooner, but I'm glad it's happening now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Lukie. It's now time for my second tip. And this is to Justice Wolohojian's current and future law clerks. And I know we have a few former law clerks in the audience, so I think that you will agree with this observation. Among many attributes, Justice Wolohojian is a terrific writer. And as a result, she's an even better editor. To that end, Justice Wolohojian perfected something at the appeals court, which I, as her original mentee, named the Appeals Court Christmas Tree. No, it's not what you think. The Christmas tree is what your draft looks like once Judge Wolohojian has edited it. You see, there's very little black. It's mostly red and green, representing strikeouts, moves, and other edits. So, warning, it's never too late or too early to see a Christmas tree, even in July. Our next speaker is Attorney Robert Fisk. Bob is a former United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, a senior law partner at Davis Polk, and was appointed by Attorney General Janet Reno as the first independent counsel for the Whitewater investigation. In that capacity, and on the recommendation of Bob Mueller, he hired Justice Wolohojian to join his team in Little Rock, Arkansas. What he did not expect is that Justice Wolohojian would get off the plane looking slightly lost and carrying only a violin case. Bob?
Thank you. It's a great privilege for me to be here to be able to speak on behalf of my very good friend, Gabrielle Wolohojian. I met Gabrielle in 1994 when I was serving as the independent counsel for Whitewater down in Little Rock, Arkansas. When I put my staff together, I started out with 3 people that had worked with me at Davis Polk that were then in the Southern District U.S. Attorney's Office, people that I knew and trusted. But I wanted to diversify the staff, and so I reached out to people all around the country to get recommendations for people that would be good additions to the staff. One of those was Bob Mueller. And I told Bob that I wanted someone that could meet the exacting requirements for this kind of an investigation. The highest professional skills coupled with sound judgment, personal integrity, loyalty, and the ability to be a team player. His immediate reaction was, "You want Gabrielle Wolohojian." And he taught, in extolling her virtues, he also mentioned that she was playing first violin in the Boston Civic Symphony Orchestra. So Gabrielle came down to Little Rock. We had an interview. It was obvious from almost the first minute this was a done deal. But when we got through, I said to Gabrielle, "Well, do you have any questions for me?" And she said, "Well, really, just one. Do you think I would be able to play in the Arkansas Symphony Orchestra?" And I said, could Ted Williams play for the Arkansas Travelers? She said, no, I just meant, would I have time to do it? I said, yes, I'm sure you can make time. And indeed she did, including playing in a concert on the 4th of July on the banks of the Mississippi River in Little Rock. So early in our investigation, we obtained a guilty plea from a municipal judge, former municipal judge in Little Rock named David Hale. And he quickly agreed to cooperate with our investigation and gave us a lot of information that led to a number of cases that were subsequently successfully brought. One of the most significant cases was a very complicated bankruptcy and tax fraud case involving the then sitting governor of Arkansas, Jim Guy Tucker, and others. Gabrielle took that on, and working with agents from the FBI and the IRS in painstaking detail, she put that case together in a period of many months, which ultimately resulted in the indictment of Governor Tucker and the two others, and also resulted in guilty pleas by all of them. This was by far the most complicated of all of the investigations we conducted. It required thoroughness, imagination, extensive legal and factual analysis, and organizational skills in directing the work of the FBI agents and the IRS agents. And Gabrielle handled it masterfully. In addition to performing brilliantly, she got along extremely well with everyone else on the team and became an integral part of a very cohesive group of lawyers that worked together extremely effectively. She was very well liked by everyone and extremely well respected. And of course, she demonstrated that cool, even temperament, which I'm sure makes it a pleasure for every lawyer who appears before her. When she was being considered for the appeals court, I wrote a letter in support to the Judicial Nominating Committee, which concluded by saying, quote, "For 6 years, I served as a member and then chairman of the American Bar Association Standing Committee on Federal Judiciary, which, as you know, is responsible for evaluating the credentials of candidates for the federal bench. Quote, based on my experience in that role, I can say without any reservation that she is one of the most highly qualified candidates for judicial office that I have ever seen come through the process." And it was extremely gratifying for me to be at her hearing before the Governor's Council and hear all the accolades that validated that statement so powerfully. So this is a great day for Gabrielle. It's a great day for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and it's an honor for me to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Fisk. Now for my third and final, I'm sure she's relieved it's my final tip, to the staff of the SJC. Justice Wolohojian's generosity is unparalleled. She knows every staff member by name. She celebrates their birthdays, their milestones, and other special events. She's also a pretty good cook and baker. To that end, she's known for her famous granola. I'm sure her colleagues at the SJC will be the beneficiary of this delectable treat. But I have a warning. Be careful if you ask her to share the recipe, because I did. And I followed that recipe to a T to try to reproduce Gabrielle's granola, to no avail. I'm convinced she left out a key ingredient when she shared this recipe. So my advice, eat what she makes, don't try it yourself. Our next speaker is attorney Peter McDonald. Peter was a litigation partner at WilmerHale and its predecessor, Hale & Dorr. Admired as a trial lawyer and trusted client advisor, Peter was especially beloved by his junior colleagues for his kindness and humor. He repeatedly shared these with Justice Wolohojian from the moment he first interviewed her for a job as a summer associate until she left the firm to join the bench. Attorney McDonald and Justice Wolohojian shared the experience of trying extremely lengthy cases with the famous Jerry Fasher. Mr. McDonald's case was against the Reverend Jerry Falwell. Justice Wolohojian's case was against the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, her current employer. Attorney McDonald?
Thank you. Thank you, Justice Blake. I was pretty relaxed until you went through the list of VIPs who are here today. Now my heart's palpitating. And Governor Healey, thank you so much for making this day possible. You made the right decision for the right reasons, even though it wasn't the easy decision, and I'm grateful for that. When Gabrielle asked me to speak today, she asked only that I not say anything that might be construed as praise. Praise makes her very uncomfortable, she explained. And furthermore, she added, it diminishes her opinion of the speaker because she insists they must be lying. I choose to ignore this Wolohojian Jedi mind trick, and I intend to tell the truth. I did, in fact, meet Gabrielle for the first time when she was applying for a position as a summer associate at Hale & Dorr. A scheduled 20-minute interview turned into a fascinating 2-hour conversation, but that's a different story. The important point is that she joined the firm. And I will say that for a person deeply uncomfortable with praise, there were a few better places to work than Hale & Dorr in the early 90s. Working in a safe space, free from trigger words such as great job or excellent work, suited Gabrielle's temperament. She certainly flourished. She quickly rose through the ranks. She had amazing skills. She was, as we used to say in Quincy before it became a national punchline, wicked smart. We also knew that she was a great writer. Given her Oxford pedigree, that was no surprise. But perhaps more surprising was the fact that Gabrielle had incandescent courtroom trial chops. Not merely poised on witness examination on cross, she channeled a deep but surgically controlled fury directed at any hint of witness mendacity. But disassembling a dissembling witness seemed like an ancillary skill and not of great interest to Gabrielle. She wasn't really attracted to the archetype of the heroic lone lead courtroom lawyer. What interested her was the insight that excellence in the courtroom was the product of people working together. And what distinguished her at the firm was her ability to create and to guide winning trial teams. With such an array of indispensable skills, it's no surprise that Gabrielle soon began to suffer a great deal of praise from many colleagues. And despite the trauma of this nightmare scenario, she persisted. She rose through the ranks, she took on greater responsibilities, and then when it seemed like the brass ring of partnership was in sight, she left the firm. And I know Mr. Fisk thinks she went to Arkansas to help him, but it was really to pursue her lifelong dream of leading the string section of the Arkansas Symphony Orchestra. We know that. She did return to us, and she stayed for a while, but then she left us again for a different ensemble, the appeals court. And the truth is, ensemble work is Gabrielle's forte, whether it's a string quartet, a symphony orchestra, a trial team, or the appellate bench. I learned recently that in college, Gabrielle was the captain of the Rutgers women's soccer team. I mean, really, is there no field of endeavor that Gabrielle cannot master? I will confess that Gabrielle's athletic history did surprise me. But what did not surprise me was that her teammates selected her to be their captain. The trait that defines and characterizes everything that Gabrielle does, and that I think perhaps explains her deep discomfort with praise, is her humility. Gabrielle has so little to be humble about, and yet she is. My hope is that today's gathering can function as a sort of intervention to gather as a group of friends, concerned friends, to help Gabrielle work through these issues, to embrace her genuine and authentic self as a rare, wonderful gift to those who know her. We are lucky to have Gabrielle in our lives, and the Commonwealth is lucky to have Gabrielle continue her service on the Supreme Judicial Court, and that's the truth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney McDonald. Our next speaker is Chief Justice Mark Green of the Appeals Court. Justice Wolohojian and Justice Green have worked together since 2008 until her appointment this year to the Supreme Judicial Court. They've worked together on many initiatives, and the Chief often sought Justice Wolohojian's guidance and counsel on cases, court processes, staffing issues, and the like. Chief Justice Green?
Thank you. It is an incredible honor for me to be invited to offer a few thoughts about my former colleague. It is more than a little intimidating for me to join this roster of speakers, but I'll do what I can. This is a bittersweet moment for those of us at the Appeals Court. It is, of course, a great celebration for the Commonwealth and for the Supreme Judicial Court. But for us on the Appeals Court, we are losing a colleague. For me personally, I'm losing a trusted advisor and an invaluable confidant. But I will do my best not to dishonor that legacy. I want to circle back just a moment, and you've heard many of the names of the mentors that Justice Wolohojian trained with. It is really quite an impressive roster. Her Judge Rhea Zobel, followed by Bailey Aldrich, Bob Fisk, Jerry Fasher, Joan Lukie, and her mentor at the Appeals Court, Raya Drebin. These are the giants of our profession. And she emerged from those mentorships, those relationships, not merely as a protege, but as someone who held the career-long affection and admiration. And these are not folks that hand out praise like popcorn. My first memory, I knew Gabrielle because my wife and she were partners at Hale & Dorr. But I didn't know her particularly well. In those days, in 2008, before I became chief, I spent most of the summer after I was done with my writing at our summer house down in Westport on the South Coast and reviewing other people's drafts. And I remember I got a call. I was in a conversation with Gabrielle at some point. It was late summer, and these large flowers that we had blooming outside of the window where I was working had just started. There was these big dinner plate. It's a branch of the hibiscus family called mallows, and I mentioned them to Gabrielle, and she said, "Well, you know, of course, that's where marshmallows came from." Now, I knew what marshmallows were, but I will confess to you that I had never imagined that there was a reason to think about where marshmallows came from. She went on to tell me that the French had used the blossoms to make a tea that they then sweetened and turned into this fluffy confectionery. And she said, "Have you ever made marshmallows?" Again, I had never imagined that there was such a thing. They were just these little round things that you buy in the supermarket in bags. She said, "They're so much better when they're homemade." And I realized that this was someone for whom good enough was never good enough. And in everything that I saw during our time working together, that became the central metaphor. That it was that extra increment that separated what we understood and accepted as the norm and excellence that really marked everything that Gabrielle did. In her decisional work, she was always prepared. She conducted the most thorough review of the record and the appendix and the transcript, always on the bench with the most respectful treatment of advocates, meticulous research, preference for doing her own writing, and an analysis that simply follows where the law leads, and clear articulation of the principles on which the cases rest. Her published written work in the bound green volumes can stand proudly alongside that of the finest jurists ever to have served on the appeals court. In my role as chief, I frequently called on Gabrielle, as Justice Blake has mentioned, to head up important and sensitive initiatives for the court. She ran our mentor program and codified a new judges orientation manual that has become a manner of ensuring that we have consistent high standards in the way that we bring new judges into our fold. She, at my request, created the first written manual of policies and procedures of the court. She led the committee that examined our second panel processes to come up with an en banc pilot. She fashioned our written policies and procedures for remote argument as we emerged from the pandemic and wondered how to build upon the experience that we had had with successful remote hearings on Zoom. She served as our liaisons to the Superior Court, the Land Court, and the Probate and Family Court, each of which lamented her substitution with someone else, although I did get good reports about Justice Grant's work in her early days in that capacity. She organized and led our first two off-site conferences. And early in her tenure, she chaired our social committee. Clerk Doyle will remember that her decorations and themes for our various appeals court social gatherings sparked what became an escalating arms race that was unsustainable. We were approaching mutually assured destruction until finally we disarmed. And she also has been a leader within our court in ways too numerous to count. She is the first to send flowers on those occasions when a quiet gesture is necessary for someone who could use one. She brings in donuts on snowy days, impromptu pizza parties, organizing dinners of women, and she's been a strong and steady voice in our meetings and consistently demonstrates a generosity of spirit that brings us all together and lifts us up. I applaud Governor Healey for this appointment. I applaud Justice Wolohojian for her service, and I look forward to what is to come.
Thank you, Chief. Well, this day would not be complete without music. Aaron Copland's Fanfare for the Common Man will be performed by members of the Boston Civic Symphony Orchestra. This is the second oldest symphony orchestra in Boston and just completed its 99th season under the direction of Maestro Francisco Noya, who is present today. Performing are Elizabeth Jewell, Adam Dohanian, Ryan Ramey, Israel Gutierrez, and Katie Doherty. Notably, Justice Wolohojian has been a violinist with the Boston Civic Symphony Orchestra since 1989. Please enjoy. ask the orchestra to stand and be acknowledged? Could I ask the orchestra to stand and be acknowledged? Before I introduce our next speaker, on behalf of Justice Wolohojian, this just did not happen overnight, and there are several people who deserve special recognition. First and foremost, the incredible Blanca Tosado. Justice Wolohojian also extends her heartfelt thank you to Tim McGuire, Ali Chiarenza, and the entire Facilities Department, Chief Court Officer Joe Carreri, and the SJC court officers, without whom this day would not be possible. Thank you all. I'm very excited to introduce our next speaker because she's a North Shore girl like me. She needs no introduction, however. She is a true partner to our governor in all things, and in particular, in the selection of judicial candidates of the highest caliber. Please join me in welcoming our Lieutenant Governor, Kimberly Driscoll.
North Shore or bust. Right. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real privilege to be with you today to celebrate the swearing in of a new Associate Justice of the Supreme Judicial Court. As you've heard, just your average run-of-the-mill candidate. As Lieutenant Governor, I had the great privilege of presiding over Justice Wolohojian's counsel hearing, our second Supreme Judicial Court hearing, and one of 22 judicial hearings so far during this administration. I could not be prouder of the talented, historically diverse set of individuals we have nominated to the bench. I want to thank the Governor's Council for their ongoing partnership and their always thoughtful and diligent work. It's a pleasure to get to spend every Wednesday afternoon with all of you. With the partnership of the Governor's Council and with the assistance of our two judicial nominating commissions, we've worked really hard to select, for all of our courts, the very best candidates. Lawyers with experience and integrity, compassion, diverse backgrounds, and dedication to the rule of law. Lawyers who are determined and ready to contribute to the work of our courts. Justice Wolohojian is here today because she is truly an outstanding lawyer, judge, and person. She's able to take a seat on the highest court in our great state and immediately contribute to the important work of this court. In fact, during the month she's already been there, she's already sat as single justice and sat on all of the court's ballot initiatives this year. Such a slacker. Clearly, Justice Wolohojian is not just one to ease into a new job. She's off to a terrific and very fast start. And I'm not surprised, having had the good fortune to spend some time with Justice Wolohojian in recent months. I've not only been impressed with her career, but her character and her work ethic. One thing that has become very clear to me is whatever Justice Wolohojian does, whatever she works on, she devotes herself fully to it, and she immerses herself completely. With the same dedication she brings to her work as a judge, she also works every single day to be the best musician, the best baker, the best party planner, and the best friend she can possibly be. To say that she's a rare kind of a person is an understatement. Justice Wolohojian is a dedicated scholar and judge, and she's also an invaluable member of her community. She loves life, loves our state, and strives every day to make the world around her better, more fair, and a little more joyful. Over the past few months, I've heard this kind of admiration for Justice Wolohojian's character from so many lawyers, judges, and community members. In every corner of the state, Justice Wolohojian is known for her intellectual firepower, her wit, her kindness, and her mentorship. I know that many lawyers and judges in this room today have had their own professional paths changed for the better because they had the opportunity to learn from Justice Wolohojian at some point in their careers. When Governor Patrick first nominated the justice to the appeals court in 2008, he predicted, and I quote, "Gabrielle Wolohojian will share with the Commonwealth her true love of the law, passion for life, and vast expertise and experience in complex litigation." I think with the benefit of a little hindsight, it's pretty clear that Governor Patrick was right. Justice Wolohojian's talents as an appellate judge are today widely known, and we've all benefited from the wisdom of his choice 16 years ago. Justice Wolohojian's commitment to justice and fair application of the law has served our appeals court well, and I know it will continue to serve our SJC and all the people of Massachusetts well as well. Well as well. Yeah, that makes sense. We wouldn't be here today and to be able to celebrate Justice Wolohojian's talent without Governor Patrick's initial appointment, and I want to thank Governor Healey for following his lead. I'm really lucky to serve along somebody that I like, respect, and admire, who there's really no better champion for Massachusetts than our governor. Someone who leads our state with empathy, with expertise, with energy, seeking excellence with a sense of urgency. I'm privileged to serve alongside her every single day, and so honored to introduce her today, my friend, the captain of Team Massachusetts, our Governor, Maura Healey.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Driscoll. And thank you, Justice Blake, for your amazing job emceeing this wonderful afternoon. Props and all. And good evening, almost, everyone. To Chief Justice Budd, Justices of the Supreme Judicial Court, the Appeals Court, and members of the state judiciary, members of the legislature, governors, counselors, district attorneys, clerks, and commissioners, members of the bar, especially members of the Armenian Bar Association, all the folks from Hale and Dorr and Wilmer Hale, members of the Boston Civic Symphony Orchestra, Judge Zobel, taverners, book club members, friends and guests. Thank you all for being here today in this historic John Adams Courthouse to mark this important occasion and to celebrate someone very special. I'd like to recognize the many retired justices who are here as well, members of the SJC and the Appeals Court, in particular Justice David Lowy, who we congratulate after 8 years of service on the SJC. We're grateful to you for your career of public service and for your continuing career of service now as General Counsel at the University of Massachusetts. I also want to recognize so many other members of the Appeals Court who've come to celebrate one of their own today. Court officers, clerks, staff attorneys, assistants, and so many more. I also, in particular, want to acknowledge Jennifer Martin. Jen, you have been an undeniable, incredibly important part of Justice Wolohojian's time on the Appeals Court for 14 years by her side. And you did a beautiful job testifying for her at the Governor's Council, and I just want to acknowledge you. I also... And finally, I'd like to acknowledge Justice Wolohojian's family. They've come from as far as Dubai and Florida and Pennsylvania, Vermont, New York, and yes, some from Massachusetts, including her dear mother. Her brother is here, and she's so proud of her brother, I know. And her aunt and uncle, her cousins, her little cousins who are big, and others. We're thrilled that you're all here to celebrate this moment. In preparing for today's ceremony, I was thinking back on the Governor's Council hearing. One memorable image from that hearing was an auditorium full, and so full, with judges. In that room that day, there were over 30 judges, current and former members of the court who came to show their support. I can't imagine a greater compliment than the overwhelming trust and support of so many judicial colleagues, past and present. And it's not every day that you get judges to agree on one thing. And yet, in that instance, it was not surprising. Justice Wolohojian's colleagues, the people who know her best, know that there is no person better prepared or more qualified to serve on the SJC. Throughout her career on the bench, Justice Wolohojian has been a mentor, confidant, and friend to so many, many judges, law clerks, and attorneys, many of whom are here today. We had the benefit a little earlier of hearing from the Justice's mentors and colleagues. She began her career as a litigator at Hale & Dorr and Wilmer Hale. She worked as a rising star with the best of the best, including Joan Lukie and Peter McDonald. At the firm, Justice Wolohojian was widely known for her unparalleled work ethic, her command as a trial lawyer, and her commitment to helping colleagues succeed professionally. In 2008, Governor Patrick nominated Justice Wolohojian to the appeals court. She was confirmed, of course, and has served with distinction for 16 years. On the appeals court, Justice Wolohojian has sat on over 2,700 appeals, authored over 900 opinions, and become one of the court's most senior justices. Through her work, she earned a place as one of our state's most highly esteemed judges. Justice Wolohojian's work in so many different areas is widely known, respected, and praised. Her judicial decisions are models of clarity, simplicity, and persuasiveness, and her decisions reflect the work of a judge who truly prizes consensus, a judge who's expert on matters both civil and criminal, and a judge, importantly, with a deep understanding of the impact of the law on the people it serves. She's distinguished herself as a fair and open-minded jurist. To the litigants and lawyers who've come before her, she's displayed kindness, patience, humility, and a willingness to stand up for those who need our support and compassion. In her work as an appellate judge, we've seen a commitment to improving public understanding of the courts and to strengthening the administration of justice. We also see a commitment to the work of other judges and to improving our judicial system as a whole. Justice Wolohojian has given generously of her time, as Chief Justice Green noted, serving on so many committees, leading so many committees, her mentoring, formal and informal, training new judges, judicial education, convening and leading mock trials through the Discovering Justice program for middle schoolers, and later inventing her own mock trial program for middle schoolers on Zoom during COVID. To her colleagues, Justice Wolohojian is consistently a source of support, empathy, humor, and wisdom. These are qualities that we all want to see reflected on our highest court. Our judiciary in Massachusetts is a beacon of justice and integrity that stands as the best in our nation. Committed to intellectual rigor, wisdom, and unwavering dedication to the rule of law. They are celebrated for their abiding sense of justice, their humanity, and their ability to clearly and articulately convey both what is and what should be. Justice Wolohojian, of course, embodies all of these qualities. A deeply talented jurist who reflects the finest traditions of our bench and bar, with a vision to help lead and navigate the complex and challenging issues that confront our state and our country. I know Justice Wolohojian will serve with dedication. I know that she will thoughtfully and faithfully execute her responsibilities. But I can't help but close without speaking to a few other things. First of all, her friendships. Gabrielle Wolohojian is a person who will visit and care for someone when they're sick. I know personally she kept a man alive after complex vascular surgery by taking him regularly to appointments and physical therapy, and eventually accepted the title as his wife because they got so used to seeing her in the hospital. And he is alive and golfing today. She delivers homemade breads and soups to people going through a hard time. She'll arrange a dinner party to celebrate a special occasion for someone, or just as a way to bring together people because she understands that's what's needed. She could do an oil change, rewire the house, and prepare coq au vin, sometimes in the same day. She is a special friend to so many, as evidenced by the fact that people are in the rafters this afternoon. Finally, while she assumes the title of Associate Justice of this auspicious Supreme Judicial Court, the most historic court in the nation and the oldest living written constitution in the world. As important as that title is, I know that for Gabrielle Wolohojian, the most important title she owns is that of daughter, brother, sister-in-law, niece, aunt, and cousin. I know she's most proud of everything that her mother and dear father, who is not with us today, made possible for her, and she's ever grateful for her grandparents and great-grandparents who endured and survived so much to make possible this great celebration and this very, very special person. So, as Governor of the Commonwealth, it is my great honor to present to you the Associate Justice of the Supreme Judicial Court, Gabrielle Wolohojian, who I invite now to stand as I administer the oath of office.
Gabrielle Wolohojian,
Do solemnly swear
that I will bear
true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts
to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts
and will support the Constitution thereof.
and will support the Constitution thereof.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I
Gabrielle Wolohojian,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
all
the duties incumbent on me as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Judicial Court,
as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Judicial Court,
agreeably
agreeably
to the rules and regulations of the Constitution
to the rules and regulations of the Constitution
and the laws of the Commonwealth.
and the laws of the Commonwealth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I
Gabrielle Wolohojian,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Before we bring up the guest of honor, I just wanted to note that Justice Wolohojian and the governor were joined by her dear friend, our senior justice of the appeals court, Ariane Vuno, who held the Bible, the translation of which is of particular significance to Justice Wolohojian's family. Thank you for letting us use that today. It is now my great pleasure to introduce my mentor, my friend, and your Supreme Judicial Court Justice, Gabrielle Wolohojian.
I'm looking for my friends on the third floor. Thank you so much for the beautiful music. That was just so wonderful. Governor, Lieutenant Governor, maybe not Lieutenant Governor anymore, Chief Justice Budd and Justices of the Supreme Judicial Court, Chief Justice Green and Justices of the Appeals Court, current and retired members of the state and federal judiciary, elected officials, members of the Governor's Council and of the Judicial Nominating Commission, members of the bar, including my fellow Armenian American judges and lawyers, family, friends, and last but certainly not least, musicians. I'm the only person who's not going to talk about myself, thank God. Thank you all for being here today. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to look out and see so many of the people who have played such significant and important roles in my life, and to thank you publicly for the different ways you've helped bring me to this point. It feels almost impossible to untangle the influence so many people have had on one single life. I see the myriad hints, boosts, and honestly, sometimes things that could be characterized as shoves that have converged to bring me here, and I thank you for all of them. There are those, such as the governor, the lieutenant governor, the governor's council, the members of the SJC-JNC, and the governor's chief legal counsel and her staff, whose direct effect on my trajectory is self-evident. If it weren't for their confidence in my abilities and for their encouragement, I simply would not be standing here today. I owe them not only thanks for their trust, but also a commitment to earn it every day going forward. And I make that commitment not only to them, but to all the citizens of the Commonwealth. But SJC justices are not merely the product of an appointment process. They are formed over decades by their earlier experiences as lawyers and judges. And I have been formed by some of the best, 4 of whom spoke today. Joan, Lukie's unwavering commitment to her clients, courage in the courtroom, skill on her feet, and talent in connecting with juries have over many years been both inspiring to me and daunting. Joan, thank you for your mentorship and friendship throughout the years, and for your kind words today. As I watched Peter McDonald navigate the waters ahead of me in private practice, I learned that John Adams was not the only native son of Quincy, with the rare combination of sensible pragmatism, thoughtfulness, and beautiful writing that makes a great lawyer. Peter, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your friendship, example, and remarks, and I'm pretty sure John Adams did not have as good a sense of humor. And thank you, Bob Fisk, for your example to us all as a lawyer in both private practice and public service. Working for you allowed me to see firsthand what it means to earn trust through integrity, discretion, character, and judgment, qualities that are as important for judges as they are for lawyers. Chief Justice Green and Justices Vuno and Blake, I thank you for supporting me here today and for your friendship and collegiality on the appeals court. I hope you won't mind if I don't single you out individually, but rather encompass my thanks to you with my thanks to all my former colleagues on the appeals court. And here it seems appropriate. Well, I actually don't know if it's appropriate, but I'm going to do it anyway. to quote Justice Brown, who once said, "The SJC may be the best court in the country, but the appeals court is the best court in the building." Now, I'm going to try to steer clear of any such dangerous comparisons and simply say that it is difficult to imagine how proud I am to have served on the appeals court for 16 years. The depth and breadth of expertise on that court, the dedication of its judges, the professionalism and commitment of its staff, the top to bottom commitment to getting it right and doing it well was a privilege to be a part of for so many years. I simply could not imagine a better preparation for the work ahead of me on the SJC. Thank you all. At both the appeals court and the SJC, I have been buttressed by the support and help of the clerks and their staff, the court officers, the staff attorneys, and my law clerks, and of course by my secretaries. You have enriched not only the quality of my work, but also the spirit in which we do it together, and I thank you. I extend a special note of gratitude and welcome to the lawyers and judges of Armenian descent who are here today, including from as far as California, as we've heard. Like all Armenian Americans, my biggest debt of gratitude is owed to my family, not only to those who are present, but to those who are not, and particularly to our grandparents and great-grandparents, whose journeys of survival and sacrifice after the Armenian genocide laid the foundation for the generations who followed them. Although involuntarily scattered across the globe, that first generation managed to take root in new countries. And here we are as lawyers, 110 years later, with an obligation to pay that debt forward through public service and pro bono work. I think of that obligation every day when I walk through this astounding Great Hall. The craftsmanship in the stonework, the sculptures, and the remarkable ceiling are the work of immigrants who brought their skills from the old country and put it to the service of their new one. This beautiful building, designed to communicate the grandeur and majesty of our government in the administration of justice, was produced by the very people who were counting on their government to do its job well. But the purpose of this imposing building is not merely to impress upon the public the importance of the work being performed inside it. Although, of course, the importance of that work cannot be overstated. Those working inside this building stand as guardians of the rule of law, the regulators of the constant balancing and rebalancing of the relationship between the individual and the state, between those who have power and those who do not, and between those who have less and those who have more. This building reminds me every day of that noble task and of my obligation to rise to it. This building also offers a promise of dignity to those who enter seeking help from the judicial system. Its dignified grandeur signals that all problems, large and small, will be listened to carefully, considered thoughtfully, and decided fairly. This is not a favor that the government can extend only from time to time as it might wish on any given day, but rather a right to which every citizen is entitled every time he or she walks into this or any other courthouse. That, in my view, is the promise of this building. It is also the animating purpose behind our work as judges. We must see and promote the dignity of the people who bring their problems to us. This is not to say that we can solve all those problems. In fact, in many cases, we can't do so because they stem from underlying weaknesses in our society. Lack of means, lack of opportunity, instability of home, of mind, or of conduct. These are not, strictly speaking, always legal issues, but here is where they land, and here is where we must address them with the humanity and dignity they deserve. In 1942, a few months, you're probably wondering where this is going. In 1942, a few months after the United States entered World War II, then Vice President Henry Wallace gave a speech in which he looked beyond the perils of the immediate conflict and saw a post-war world of opportunity and promise led by the rise of literacy, educational opportunity, and technology. Wallace looked ahead and saw what he proclaimed would be the century of the common man. Inspired by this speech, Aaron Copland composed the fanfare we heard so beautifully performed today, the fanfare for the common man. It is a musical tribute and a clarion call, not for the powerful, not for the wealthy, not for the famous, but rather for those who, like the craftsmen who built and decorated this building, work anonymously for the common good. Thank you, Governor Healey, for the opportunity to do the same myself.
Thank you all so much for joining us in our celebration of this so important occasion. Justice Wolohojian invites you to join her family and friends at a reception that will be held at the top of the stairs. You may take the stairs behind you, or there are elevators on either side. But I would ask you, if you are so able, to please stand and remain in place during the recessional. We look forward to seeing you upstairs. Thank you, everyone.